Welcome to Mastering Programmatic Advertising. I'm Bob Jameson. I am the VP of the East for Ad Taxi. Along with me today, I have Megan McCurr and Chris Berkey. How you doing, guys?
Hello,
Doing well.
hello.
How are you?
Doing well. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Ad Taxi, Megan and Chris are the leaders of our client services team. Megan in the West, Chris in the East, and their teams are our strategists, and they're essentially responsible for executing our client strategy, meeting their real life goals across our digital platform. So whether they're running search, social, or programmatic campaigns with us, Megan and Chris, their job is to translate digital actions to clients, customers, patients, students, whatever a business may call the people they're trying to reach. Megan and Chris are using digital tactics and help translating that to bring about those real life results for them. So very important. I thought having them today would be good because they could tell some stories of client successes from their perspective, which I think is probably the best perspective to share. Today's agenda. So we're going to go through programmatic advertising, a little bit of an overview. This might be review for some, but I think it's good to get everybody started off at the right spot. Then we'll talk about campaign fundamentals, then crafting a solid programmatic strategy. And lastly, we'll talk about some client success stories that we have, which I think are really good to round out it with. So without further ado, I'll get into the overview of programmatic advertising. So I think the first thing to frame, and I don't think any of this data is going to surprise anybody. You guys weren't surprised when you saw this, I don't think, but it's really what the opportunity is out there digitally. People have more choices with content, right? They can watch videos anywhere. They can check news anywhere. They can do all of this. So people are using different channels, different stations, different publishers. We know that. But I guess the good thing for our advertisers is that at least we know they're reachable because people are on their device. It's on their hip. It's in their hand. They're staring at it while they're watching another device. So people on average have 2.5 different devices, and 95% of the people own a computer or mobile device. So those other 5%, I have a feeling a lot of the people who are interested in programmatic advertising aren't going to worry about those people because they're probably living in a bunker in the woods somewhere. But nonetheless, the ability to reach these people is definitely there, and it spans across desktop, laptop, tablet, and mobile. And I think most of us have at least a couple of those, if not all. And with those devices, we spend a lot of time. And I don't know about you, but I have an iPhone, so I get my weekly report, and it reminds me of how much I can't live without my device weekly. On a Sunday, I get it. And we are up to 8 hours and 5 minutes as of 2024, which is crazy. 64% of their total media time is on digital in the US. So that's crazy. More than 8 hours per day, more than half of your waking hours. So we are on these devices, and programmatic is, in my opinion, the best way to reach those people. So what is programmatic advertising? Well, what it is taking our clients' ads, getting them out there via ad servers, and distributing them on any piece of content that's appropriate. And I'm going to get into the types of content, but I think first it makes sense to go through how those ads get there because it happens in real time. Normally what happens is we're targeting that person on the other end of the screen, regardless of content. I think when we talk to our clients, I know you guys often say this, don't worry about where it's going to be, where the publisher is going to be. Trust me, we'll make sure your ads are on reputable content that are brand safe. But at the end of the day, you're never going to be able to buy up every piece of content you want, and you shouldn't. But you are trying to buy certain people on the other end of that screen that are in your geography and that are more likely to do business with you guys. You guys see that a lot where people are trying to pick and choose content. It can be a dangerous game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not about the actual content, it's about the person.
No, definitely. So let's talk about the content, though, because I know you guys want to know. Maybe this is the last time we'll talk about the content, but it's important to see some logos that we're all familiar with. So most people do know display advertising, and you're going to see those ads on reputable news sites like New York Times, CNN, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, USA Today. Of course, the Weather Channel, which is important, so I know what to wear. Native advertising, usually the placements are pretty similar, and we're going to talk a little bit more about native later. But native will look less like an ad. It's going to match the look and feel of the site that it appears on. Usually it's a headline, and it'll send you off to, I guess, more long-form educational content in the form of a blog or an article. And it's a really good placement that Chris and Megan will get into in a little bit. Audio, a lot of us are listening to podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio. And all of those publishers are out there, and we're able to get ads on those platforms. And then when we talk about connected TV and video, it's brands like YouTube, Hulu, Sling, Roku, CBS, Peacock, all the individual networks. It's all of those. And then via digital out of home, it's the billboards that you see that are electronic, but any type of digital ad out there, whether it be public transportation tiles, you could be in a doctor's office waiting room, you could be at a gas station and that video playing while you're filling your pump, in a supermarket line. There's a variety of ways to reach people. And the beauty of it is you can do it all from one place. And again, it's not about where, but it's more about those people. But just rest assured, I think we described a nice array of places to have your ads found. Now let's talk about the people. And this is the thing to me. The targeting that's there to get in front of these people is robust. There are 60 plus SSPs, that's supply side platforms, and 7,000 private marketplace deals. Like I said before, all these places are brand safe and viewable, and we use predictive clearing price technology, which means we're not going to overpay for your ads to appear anywhere. So we're managing your budgets more efficiently. But the key is the data and the targeting. There are over 194 third-party data providers like Oracle, Experian, TransUnion, where they have data that allow us to hit those people based on what they're doing online, based on who they are demographically, based on a lot of things. There are over 400,000 targeting segments. And if that's not enough, you can bring your own data. We use first-party data a lot, and we're able to build lookalike audiences or target those people specifically. And of course, we're able to leverage predictive modeling. On the attribution side, and Megan and Chris will get into this a little more, there's advanced measurement and optimization tactics that allow us to take advantage of cross-device attribution, also offline attribution, and then cross-channel optimization, and then advanced conversion reporting analysis. So there's a lot to take advantage of, and it's a matter of doing it properly. So next, we are going to talk about fundamentals, and Chris is here to put the fun in fundamentals.
Thanks, Bob. So when we're working through onboarding a new client or working with an existing one that maybe wants to break into a new market, let's say they've only been in the Northeast and they're looking to go to the Southwest, there's three key questions that we really like to ask. One, who do you want to reach? Obviously, when you're working with a new client, you have to know that, right? We're not going in with preconceived notion of who that person is. Well, that's the same thing for a client that you have existing too, right? We don't want to say that maybe that person from the Southwest is exactly the same as the person we've been targeting in the Northeast. The different people, they act different ways. So you really want to dig in and find out who that person is. Then what do you want to tell them? Are we just branding yourself? Are we giving them an offer? What are we doing? So what do you want to tell them? And then what do you want them to do at the end of the day? Are we getting them to purchase? Are we getting them to fill out a form? We just want them to get to the site. There's people that, hey, we just want them to get to the site, dig around so that we can retarget them down the line. So what do you want them to do? I know these things seem like kind of marketing 101 basic concepts, but you'd be surprised. Megan and I and our teams deal with this all the time. Sometimes our clients are very closed off and unwilling to share just exactly what their goals are. And that makes our jobs tougher. You know, when we're thinking about programmatically, how we can really do a great job of getting in front of a very specific person, not having that information is going to make our jobs that much tougher and not really get us to your end goal of driving a purchase or getting that form fill. So having that deep conversation really does shape the media mix that we'll end up pitching and delivering.
Makes sense. And I think, Chris, the thing in here is that when to have simple tactics and when to have advanced tactics. And this is simple, but it's definitely something that's important to almost keep simple.
Mhm. I agree. And the other piece to that too, and they may not know all the answers to those questions. They may not know exactly who they want to reach. So we utilize all of these levels within our platforms to identify really what it is that we need to make sure that we're hitting, and not just who they're telling us to make sure we're serving to as well. So using all of these advanced targeting tactics like data layers, and not just saying I want to reach anybody in market for a car, but what else are they also in market for that we could potentially get in front of them. They maybe be in market for a car, but they also only want to spend between $10,000 and $20,000 on that car, or their household income is within a specific level. But there's so many layers that we can add in from a data targeting perspective that allows for programmatic ads to serve them really when they need to be served. Another piece of that too is taking your retargeting to the next level. Don't just do a broad strokes approach on basic retargeting and make sure that you're hitting them anywhere from any page of the site. Segment those users down, maybe hit them right before they're about to purchase, but they're like, get distracted, they go off, they go do something else. Remind them that they forgot to finish that checkout process. Really make sure that you're getting intelligent with your retargeting, not from a segmentation perspective as well, but also a bidding segmentation as well. Making sure that if you are a law firm and you don't want to or you want to make sure you're getting in front of them at that immediate time, you may have some bid adjustments for a 0 to 7 day time frame. Get intelligent with it. Think strategically on how quickly is your audience making a decision. And sometimes it's the data that's telling us to do that. Don't be afraid to go across channels either. Like you may notice Bob mentioned earlier with native advertising. That is a fantastic way to get in front of your ads or get in front of your users at multiple layers, but also multiple placements as well. And then within the platform itself, the one that we personally use has some fantastic trends and ability to immediately respond to how the users and how the market is trending. Might have to increase your bids because the election is approaching. We may see some trends there. We also may see that shopping during Christmas week is all of a sudden everybody's shopping for everything. So it's immediately responding to those trends within the platform and allowing for the algorithms to adjust naturally.
It's crazy. You do see brands that do some of this really well for the pieces that you can see. And the other
Mhm.
things like overpaying or underbidding because of busy times, you don't see that. So it's amazing how some of it's obvious and some of it not so obvious.
Yeah.
Chris, the customer journey is interesting to me because we have clients that really have perceptions about the platforms that are leveraged. But I know you have some strong opinions about really how they span the whole gamut.
Yeah, I really love this slide because it really illustrates all of these different placements can do a lot of different things. You know, people get so hung up on digital out of home, oh, billboards. It's just awareness. People won't, they won't take action. I don't have money to spend on that. And I'm like, yeah, Chevy has money to spend on that. You know, these major brands still spend so much money on just putting their name in front of you so that you remember when you make the decision, why is your business any different? Like, yes, I get you don't have Chevy money, who does? But you know, those concepts they still ring true, right? It's still what you should do, obviously, to scale, but what you should do to try to get your message out there and get people to think of you when the time comes. So, you know, it's really cool that these products aren't just one trick ponies. They do have various different things that they can do to get that target user to complete the action that you want them to do. You know, and I know, you know, Megan and I have conversations all the time about, you know, hey, what did this product do for you? You know, I haven't run connected TV as a performance piece to get conversions. What have you seen? And, you know, Megan, I'll kick it to you. I think, you know, you've had some
Yeah.
really good experience with connected TV there and get your thoughts on that.
It doesn't. A lot of people come in and think that connected TV is a top of funnel or brand awareness play, and the same kind of sentiment with your digital out of home piece. But we've actually seen when you partner a connected TV ad, you can actually increase the time or you can actually shorten the time frame of which it takes to make the decision. So what we've learned is some of these placements, maybe there are some limitations on the attribution side. We've seen it up, down, and sideways, but we've seen that when you incorporate a connected TV ad in retargeting, for example, that time frame from when that person first saw a placement to the last time they saw a placement shortened. So we took that purchase cycle from 28 days to 24 days, for example. Same thing can go with audio, and there's so many areas that you can use these higher funnel placements to manipulate the system a little bit to try to get those users to convert in a way that you want them to. Sometimes they just need a little extra brand trust built before they decide.
To me, this is one of those areas where I feel like traditional media tactics don't always work with their digital counterparts. I think, traditionally with media, it was like always like, let's have the matching luggage for each type of ad. And it was just same ad, different format. And I think, Megan, to your point, like if you have a CTV campaign that's geared towards retargeting, that call to action, that ad should look a lot different. There should be more thought put in. And I think this is probably one of those areas where, would you guys say that the mark gets missed with
I think
brands?
Yeah, I think it can. We have these conversations all the time. Like on the front end, probably should look somewhat similar, right? If you're prospecting, have that same message look the same, whether it be TV or digitally. But then when you get to that retargeting, you get them to that space, whether it's a product description page or man, you even get them into the cart. You want to say back to them something that's very specific to the next action you want them to take. And it's all right that it looks different to what they've seen before in some form or fashion. Like obviously you want to keep consistent with the brand in most instances, but if your brand is kind of wild, which there's plenty of disruptors out there, lean into it. Have a pink color background with a yellow shoe if that's what so fits you. So yeah, I definitely think kind of reframing what that is and the different messaging is huge.
I think to add to that too, the piece that I see a lot is potentially offers at the very end stage. I added something into my cart and then I got distracted. I forgot about it. Or maybe I want to go research another brand. Throwing an offer in front of somebody saying a limited time exclusive offer just for you can potentially persuade. I mean, it does for me. My credit card says so, at least. Can influence me to potentially make that decision and purchase that product instead of the other one that I was also researching as well.
Yep, and leaning into that quickly, using programmatic especially to get that banner ad, native ad to them quickly, because we know a lot of people use, especially in the e-commerce space, Klaviyo is hitting them with an email if they've already logged in and made it to a certain point. But if they're using their personal and not their work email, are they checking their email? Are they getting their notifications?
Mm-hmm.
We know they're still doing stuff on the internet. Maybe not in their email, but they're moving on to the next web page, or they're still shopping, like you said, Megan. You're still in the consideration mode, maybe. So getting a banner ad back in front of them as quick as you possibly can to say, "Hey, here's that offer. Come purchase me now," is so huge.
It's all about psychology, right? Well, you guys gave some tips, but let's get into the meat of crafting a solid programmatic strategy. So, Chris, I know you talked about this a little bit, but
I did, yeah, and I don't know if it's something that we need to necessarily harp on because again, one of these kind of basic concepts of it, but we think back to that who, what, action taking conversation, and now we've looked at the advanced targeting, and we've considered all these programmatic placements and how they can kind of fit into the mix. Now we're thinking of all right, what is the right message to get out there, right? We've talked about it. Maybe it's an offer for HVAC. We're coming into the season. Maybe you need that $100 off a tune-up or something like that. Who's the right person? Well, we know we probably want homeowners. We don't want somebody that is in an apartment because it's already covered for them. The right moment. Well, they've been looking, or just the fact that it's going to be 100 degrees. I know Bob in the Northeast, you guys were already in the 80s, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, that's the perfect time to be like, hey guys, if you weren't thinking about it already, better get your stuff tuned up. And then on the right device, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people have a lot of different devices, and a lot of people are on multiple devices at the same time. I was watching the basketball game playoffs last night, but I was still on Facebook and clicking articles and stuff like that. So making sure that you're getting me in all those different places, probably a pretty good idea, right? And we can do that taking a data-driven approach, right, to deliver those conversions. We're not just looking at it as like, hey, let's just throw 100,000 impressions onto the New York Times and see what happens, right? Like that's just not necessarily the right way to do it, but putting everything that we've talked about into the system and running programmatically to get in front of people when they're doing the things we want them to do is really a great way to drive growth for your business.
I think the right moment part, sometimes it's, the right moment for the business itself too. Like your example of an HVAC contractor, maybe the weather is still kind of mild and they got a lot of guys or gals working and they're trying to find stuff for them to do. Getting those tune-up offers out there, maybe when it's not, dire straits and people are sweating and, hot as can be. It's just keeping the team busy in the meantime and using those levers when it's not as busy during that shoulder season is equally as important.
Exactly. Environmentally, things in the service space hugely come into that, and we think too, we didn't necessarily talk about it, but when we were talking about what the different platforms maybe do, but native, we're educating people a lot of the time, and we have a preconceived notion of what that person is and what they're doing. They might, hey, I'm a runner. Yeah, let's make sure we only get in front of them and running content, that kind of stuff. But man, those people are so much more. They're moms, they're teachers, all these different things, right? And get it in front of them where they are, no matter what. It's so cool the things you can do programmatically. Megan, I'm sure you feel this a lot of the time in the campaigns you're running, just all the different levers you can pull.
Absolutely. And I think something too with the right moment piece is taking it a step further with just thinking outside of the box as well. Like if you've got a service, like an automotive dealership, and you want to get these people back in for services, you can actually pinpoint a time frame of when they last purchased their vehicle and get in front of them with service ads because it's been 12 months since they've brought the car in. You can manipulate the audience pools and adjust the necessary and really try to get in front of them at the right time.
It's programmatic's like the human brain. You have to use as much of it as possible, and oftentimes it's not used. And I think the sequential messaging that Megan's going to talk about next is probably a really good example of that when you think about it.
Yeah, we spoke a little bit earlier about getting a connected TV ad in front of them with an offer right before the decision. But what's the message that gets delivered earlier? What brings them that brand awareness? What makes them understand who you are, where you are, what do you do? You may want to have a message that really simply lays that out during that first phase or that first impression. And then maybe once they've visited their site and maybe shown a little bit of interest, you want to serve them a different message, but they didn't add something to their cart. They just kind of stood on the homepage and maybe bounced around a couple of other pages, but didn't really show too much decision-making action at this point. Maybe you want to show them like, hey, we are better than our competitors because of X, Y, and Z. We are really the company that you need to come to us for all of your needs. And then maybe the decision at the end of the day is we'll come to your I'm just going to use a plumber or an HVAC is we'll come to you 24/7 anytime you need. Oh, well, I need it now. I was shopping for one earlier, but my toilet's overflowing and I need to make sure that I handle that. So you get in front of them in a different stage with a different message. And I think that at the end of the day, you can really make sure that that brand is trusted and driving that end result of what do you want to do? What do you want to get that user to do?
That's really cool. And then, the data. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of different ways to leverage it. Chris, can you kind of elaborate on how it gets used and in some examples there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this part is when it gets fun, right? Because these can kind of seem like basic concepts, like, yeah, no, duh. I got to plug in demographics, geography makes sense, shopper habit, content interest, but these things aren't always being taken into consideration. And I think if we talked a little bit about prior state traditional media, like that's where programmatic especially can come and can help those things that in the traditional sense are maybe overlooked, like
Yeah.
TV, radio. You've probably heard it. You're in your car and you're living like I did in southern New Jersey, and you hear an ad come over the radio for Central PA that's 50 miles away, that in the East Coast traffic will take you 3 hours to get to. That alone, you're not going to consider it. And then it comes into it's not even something that you're truly interested in. Well, that advertising dollar right there was essentially wasted because I'm never in the market for it, right? It's not even something that I could maybe be swayed by. It's just completely out of bounds. Whereas, you get into the programmatic space, especially, and you can say, I know that I want a 25-year-old. I mean, you can get it to that, right? You don't want 25 to 30. You want 25, and I want them to, live in this town and evoke this shopping habit of being into premier brands. And you can put that all together because that's even a concept that some agencies don't even do. You might get the geography and that's it. That's all they'll run. They'll put your banner ad just in the DMA and cool, let's see what happens. Well, that's great, but then that's essentially the TV ad, right? Or I'll put you in the 25 to 34. Well, that's cool, but I know only 25-year-olds buy my product. Or maybe that's wrong. And that's the cool thing about looking at the data too. Megan, you'll see it all the time. Somebody comes in with that preconceived notion that it is the 25-year-old, but hey, we ran the 25 to 34 and the 33-year-olds are kicking butt.
And for example, on the geo side too, is we get so many brands that are maybe an e-commerce brand coming to us and say, well, we ship nationally, but do you really want to focus all of your budget nationally? Maybe you only have a small budget and you don't necessarily have the ability to scale as you believe. So we can go and define that. But not only that, but if you want to stay nationally, maybe we bid adjustments for those areas that have the highest propensity to purchase, or maybe they are driving higher revenue or higher ROAS. Or just more speaks to maybe you're a sunglass company and you want to make sure that you've got Florida saturated because it's always sunny there. Just making sure that you're more strategic than just saying, I just want to target the United States because I'll ship anywhere. Taking it a step further and identifying what it is that you really want to make sure is a market that you're overly saturated because you have higher performance there.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's huge. I've seen that before, and especially the sunglass one's perfect because you think about Florida being saturated. I live in Minnesota. There are times in the year that it's cloudy and snowy and there is no sun, and you're not necessarily thinking it, but when it's summertime, let's start delivering those ads, right? Like, look at the seasonality of it too. Can you win out more in a certain month or whatever? That's the fun thing about finding the strategy in it too, and then using the right products to get in front of people.
Yeah. And I think you touched on it a little bit, but really getting in front of those users intelligently, not just looking at it from a top level scope, but the same thing goes on the retargeting side. Don't just limit yourself to the website targeting. I think we've touched on this a little bit already, but really engaging those users at critical moments right before they purchase or right before they're making a decision, or even before they're ready to make a decision. They're just kind of scoping around, and you need to make sure that you're serving them with an ad that is showcasing why they should follow you. Don't just do the broad strokes. Make sure that you're refined, but also make sure that you're covering all levels of retargeting. The other piece to this is making sure that you're not oversaturating the market. You want to make sure that you're not overdoing it. I can't tell you how many brands that I see ads and I'm like, I'm tired of seeing this ad. I'm done. Like just stop. Can I X out of this and just never see it again? Because they've hit me home so many times. And at this point, it's turning me off of purchasing from that brand. So making sure your frequency controls are aligned with what you want your user to see. Going back to that sequential messaging that we talked earlier, we may want to make some adjustments on maybe that middle of funnel piece. Like, okay, they're not converting after they've seen the ad 4 times. Let's exclude them after that and make sure that we move on and give them a different message. So making sure that you've got those controls in place. And then the next piece to that is don't just look at the standard metrics of impressions and clicks and video completion rates. Like, take it a step further and look at it from a first touch. Look at it from a time to convert, and really making sure that you're purchasing or you're spending the inventory where it needs to go, and getting that the right frequency at the right time to drive that user throughout the goal.
Yeah, I think that's where that cool, intelligent remarketing comes in too, right? Because, and that's the cool thing about programmatic too. As long as that cookie is still there, we've got 90 days worth of data coming back to us that we can look at and see when a person was first hit with the ad versus the last person and what they're doing in between there, right? And how many times we've hit them and come to a point to find that right frequency. So it's not even like we're just guessing. Here's a hard fact of
Mm-hmm.
in the first 5 days, people typically need to see the ad 4 times. In the middle, doesn't matter how many times they see it, they're not doing the action that we want them to. And then how you were talking about earlier, that 45 days past, there's data there too that we say, okay, they need to see it another 10 times, but they do still make a purchase. It allows us to make some really great decisions, plus have conversations about creative and things like that and what to say in that first 5
Yep.
versus the 45 after, and even maybe what to say in the middle, if anything at all.
So we have pretty much 8 minutes left, and this is what I came here for, was your insights more so on some success stories you've had with clients, and any other tips and advice and do's and don'ts that you guys want to get out over the next 8 minutes or so, I think would be helpful. So I don't know which one you want to go first in terms of some client stories you have, but just talk about how leveraging programmatic has an impact in areas you may not suspect.
I think one really that comes top of mind is I talked a little bit more about that connected TV placement, and when Chris was talking through about the journey and how each step plays a pivotal role. There's so many times in which we get kind of pigeonholed in thinking that these placements are only good for this one segment or this one strategy. But thinking outside of the box, we actually saw with an automotive dealer that when we added in connected TV to the mix, we saw that time frame shorten. So that consideration stage was substantially less shorter in the number of days it took for a user to actually fill out a form. At that time, this was pre-pandemic, so the consideration cycle was a little bit longer for automotive. We shortened it from, I think, 28 days down to 24 days. And then when we pulled placements away, we actually saw that consideration cycle increase right back up. We've seen examples where the overall, don't just look at the metrics that you're serving on programmatic too. With the connected TV placement, we saw that branded searches started to increase, so that the actual demand for their brand was more in the marketplace than it was when we didn't have connected TV in place. So it can influence not just other programmatic channels, but other paid media channels as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think, one of the biggest pieces that we see success in is how it really affects paid search, right? The bottom of the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
So many times, we think we've got a campaign running at full capacity on the search side. And they're like, well, why am I not seeing any growth? Why are my branded searches not growing? Why is my organic traffic not growing? We're like, well, what are you doing on the branded side of things to get your name out there? And it's typically they're not doing anything, right? They haven't locked into running anything programmatically. no banner ads. So digital out of home not even being something, connected TV not even being something, and even just plugging in a banner ad campaign programmatically has seen traffic on the branded side, organic side, direct jump up. Cost a lot of times could go down because people know who you are, because you know, we're talking about that consideration, that understanding of who you are. We're using these products to say, hey, remember me? You saw me last night while you were watching the game. You have the need now. Come look for me. And it kind of builds that groundswell for your business that a lot of times is overlooked.
Chris,
Yeah.
you had a home services company that tested one of the 5 geographies they serve with the programmatic campaign, and the cost per lead dropped significantly.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, you know, and not that the cost per lead was in a bad place at all for home service, but you know, we plugged it into a spot where highly competitive. So, you know, on the search side of thing, it's costing them a decent amount of money to get that lead because your cost per click is up. So you really need people to know your name, where it's going to cost you a little bit less. So you hopefully can capture them that way. So getting that message out there and getting in front of people where they are, what they're doing, what they're watching, those kind of things. We were able to shave about $25 off their cost per lead in month 1. So,
Wow.
you know, and typically we like to say, hey, we really like 90 days to really
Right.
ramp this up and get the targeting. Because, you know, the fun thing about programmatic, you can put in a ton of cool thoughts into your targeting, let the system kind of, you know, in tandem with our eyeballs, find, you know, kind of that smooth way of getting in front of people, the effective way. And typically it takes about 90 days for it to really hit its full form. And I will say it has dropped now that we're at the 90-day mark. It's dropped even more. But to see that $25 drop in month 1 was just amazing. And it proved the concept to the client. And she was excited and wanted to spend it on all the other properties.
Guys, we have
Awesome.
about 3 minutes left. Like, and I wanted to hit on this. If you have, I mean, are there things out there that you see just poorly executed programmatic strategies from clients or other agencies? Is there anything that really bothers you that you feel like people need to know?
I think something, Chris, you mentioned the competitive landscape. I've heard so many clients where they're like in New York City or LA or big markets, and like, I can't afford a TV ad. But you can, but it's not in the sense that you think. It's the connected TV placement. More and more people are cutting the cord, and there's a lower need and a lower threshold for actually getting into your market than what you were expecting with a traditional TV buy. You're thinking you got to spend 10, 20, 30 grand a month on a traditional TV buy. You can get away with much less with connected TV and still reach a great audience, and you can actually see the conversions from it. So there's a lot of positive attribution that comes from that piece as well.
Any
Yeah,
thoughts come to mind for you, Chris? Yeah.
well, I was just going to say, in that thought on what Megan was saying, I mean, that is so true. And, you know, I think on the traditional TV landscape, they try to push you to be in the premium content too, right? They want you at the 8 o'clock slot to have, you know, still do the big money buy. And then as you go along to where it gets affordable, well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm half asleep and your ad just kind of goes to my closed eyeballs. Whereas, you know, doing it programmatically with connected TV, you have the opportunity, 1, to get in front of the premium content, but 2, regardless of that, you're getting them when they're engaged. So it could still be at 8 o'clock when they're watching whatever program they're watching. And you're not paying that premium just because somebody told you that it costs a premium. But I think one of the challenges that I see and becomes like a barrier for programmatic is people just, they don't want to spend the money because of that preconceived notion of, well, it's just branding. It's always just branding. And yes, a very large portion of it is branding. But like I said, Pepsi still brands, Chevy still brands. Do they need to brand? If they want new people, yes. But you know, me, I'm, you know, of an age that I've seen Pepsi for a lot of years now, and I know that when I want a soda, I'm going to go get it. But you still need to have, it can't just be I want to see my dollars turn into a conversion. You also need to have that consideration of, I need to find new people because my well will eventually dry up. And programmatic is just such an awesome way. It gives you so many different ways to get in front of that person and show them your message and get them to think of you when it is time to have that conversion metric piece happen in the funnel.
Thank you so much, guys, for your time. I really enjoyed this discussion. If people want to learn more, please visit adtaxi.com, email us at info@adtaxi.com, or you can call our toll-free number, 877-856-4668. Thank you all for your time.